before we get started.
I started recording just so I don't forget.
Sure, no problem. Okay. And when we get started, Bree, if it's okay, I will share my screen because I have a little agenda based on our last meeting and then the chair meeting that occurred and all that fun stuff. So.
Okay.
And I'll probably email it over to you too in case to put in the file if we need to or whatever, but.
That sounds good.
Okay. Okay, it's 2:02. I think we're going to get started. Okay, welcome everybody once again to the policy and funding meeting. I am going to go ahead and try to share my screen here and get my agenda up here. Let me do this, make it bigger for you guys. Whoa, too big. Sorry, my bad. Okay. All right. So thank you guys for all attending. What we'll do is we'll go through a quick update on the working groups if anybody wants to share anything with us, just briefly where your groups are at. And then we'll go into building on the menu of options that we kind of developed. On this agenda, it's the short version basically, but of what we came up with, and just you'll see in red, I put some additions in where we have been having conversations with various members of the policy group or things that I captured on other calls or other meetings. I just kind of put them in here because they're really action items around our menu of options, which is where the group is going. So, Bree, would you mind taking us around the world on the groups and just let everybody give us a quick update on what their group has going on?
Sure. So let's see. Since the last meeting, I don't know if anybody's actually had anything other than maybe organics, but so the recycling group, they're working on hub and spoke in rural areas for recycling, as well as improving access to recycling for multifamily buildings. For source reduction, they have quite a few things going on, like trying to reduce the single-use plastics and textile waste. Let me pull up their objectives.
This is helpful.
Addressing knowledge gaps and data gaps with hazardous and non-hazardous waste streams, because they found that there's not a lot of information or data out there for Nevada specifics on our waste streams. Working on developing a roadmap to a circular economy, decreasing the amount of hazardous waste generated in Nevada, and decreasing the amount of waste generated during construction. So that's source reduction. There were a few things that they originally were focused on with food and yard waste, but that got moved over to organics. And organics, trying to improve end use and demand for compost, increasing the amount of organics that are diverted from the landfill, decreasing contamination in organics sent for composting, improving infrastructure for organics management in the state, and then also closing data gaps with organics management. Education and outreach, their main focus has been developing a website to serve as a centralized data clearinghouse for the state, and that's basically going to be converting the Nevada's Recycles website to a Sustainable Nevada's website. So they've been working on the formatting and how they're going to categorize information that they get from the group. They've also brought up the issue of not having a strong representation on social media, and so any any outreach campaigns that come about from the working groups as ideas, they'll also work on helping to implement those. And I know like organics and source reduction have identified a lot of education opportunities. Source reduction. And then sustainability, they're more of the broad, like 30,000 foot level, but looking at, let's see, looking at existing effective efforts for maintaining sustainable and equitable water supplies, helping assist local and state entities, schools, and businesses with implementing sustainability plans, and increasing communication and education surrounding climate change action work being done. Looking at reducing inequalities and disparities, so that almost environmental justice aspect of sustainability. And then establishing a communication network between specialists working on energy needs in Nevada. Did I miss anybody? Any group? And I think that's it.
Okay. I took some notes on that. I might ask maybe you or Kayla to take a look and clean them up and fix them, because I type slow. We'll be honest here. Shoot. Okay, very good. Thank you for that. There's a lot going on. This is really exciting, and I'm happy to see folks are starting to kind of drill down on their focus and also on the data needs in order to really set a baseline for what we're looking at and what we're looking to complete, or the roadmap we're trying to complete. So, okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here. And, okay, so based on those updates, you know, we had discussed all along kind of identifying current regulations and policies that pose as barriers to sustainability. And likewise, you know, policies, I should put in here, policies that will support our efforts too, right? So with that, you know, one of the discussions we had was around incentives or opportunities. And one place that I really think we can make a difference, and I've kind of mentioned this before, is, you know, working with the state of Nevada in regards to their purchasing and their specifications and things for maybe some of their purchasing around improving, buying things that are made from recyclable materials, or are recyclable packaging or source reduction, that kind of thing, starting to educate our biggest buyer in the state on the advantages of doing these things. And so I just kind of put the one that I know that I can make the immediate impact on is discussing with NDOT and their specifications teams about using recycled asphalts, which recycled asphalt not only includes recycling the asphalt that we mill up out of the roads, but there's the opportunity to put recycled tires and plastic into the roads. There's a ton of research being done and some demonstration projects in places like Washington and Oregon where it's been successful. So I think that's one opportunity to have a discussion with the folks at not only the UNR Asphalt Lab, but their partnership with NDOT to look at some of these things and start including them in their specs, or maybe giving a bonus for that type of thing being in the spec, right? And then the other thing is, you know, when it comes to organics, one of the things that I heard in a lot of these meetings is that there's a struggle with the back end market for the composted material, right? And so one thing that came to mind for me was when we do roadside reclamation or the Public Works Department releases a facilities upgrade with landscaping, in the specifications, maybe there's a requirement for recycled compost and mulch. We currently don't do that. We seed right into the desert soil and pray that it grows. So that's not only a loss and waste of the seed and resources to put it in the ground, but you could have just added a little bit of compost to that and you had a better soil and nutrient composition, so you actually get revegetation. So, and then the last thing that I thought was thinking of is glass and asphalt mixes. We add sand to asphalt, and glass as a sand can create a sand. So that's the kind of thing I was looking at in the near future of stuff that we're already doing that we can do better. When I bring up those kind of examples, I'm wondering if there's anything in your guys' world that is on the phone or on the computer that comes to mind that we should add to this list. Is there something you know of that we can, it doesn't matter how out there it is, let's just get it on the list and we can vet it we're just making suggestions at this point. So is there anybody who has any input on that potential? Oh, I see a couple hands raised. I'm gonna go to the hands quick, okay? I think Alexia was first.
Yeah, hi, this is Alexia. I wanted to add to this list, right, of government to prioritize recycle versus virgin, you know, lithium ion battery recycling. And that, you know, there's technology that can do that, you know, right in the Tri-Center and in a couple of other places. The people that are, you know, actively engaged in this are building, you know, support systems around, you know, supply chains and finding the materials to recycle. And I think that bringing in some industry experts to talk to us, to give us a clear understanding of what's involved, would make it a lot easier for us to reach out then and communicate with our government officials in discussing the importance of recycling these materials rather than just strictly mining for them, right? So that, I think, is a very critical part to this discussion.
I would add, thank you, that is absolutely critical to this discussion, and I would tell this entire group that if you have an industry expert that you would like or know of for me to reach out to and get them scheduled for the first 15 minutes of any one of our meetings, I am glad to do so. And I would love something like this, Alexia, but I think you're absolutely right. This is one, and I'm going to talk about this below. This kind of ties into one of the things that came up in other discussions that I've had in regards to what are we already doing that we're not doing well? And so this is an example, right? You have this lithium ion battery recycling facility at the Tri-Center, but none of us know what they do, how to do it, or how to access them. So this is exactly what we're looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, and really quick, I just wanted to add one more thing. Myself and Doug Hamilton with ABTC, you can see his smiling face right there. I think between the two of us, we will definitely reach out to you, Tina, with some experts who can present to this group. Yeah, Doug, I just volunteered you. Okay.
Yep, I'm in 100%.
Okay, noted. I love it. Keep it coming. Susan, what do you got?
Well, the one thing I was going to say, we do have an expert on here already with Doug Hamilton, because he's with American Battery Technology Company, which is an LIB recycling plant that's being built in Fernley. You know, when we talk about government to prioritize recycled material, I think about all the cell phones and laptops and everything else that uses lithium batteries. What are our state offices doing with all of theirs? I know we have a whole drawer full here of cell phones that they hold on to for 6 months or a year, something like that, and then they send them back. And I assume those get recycled, but just, we have a lot of big businesses, and certainly our state government is very big business. And how do how does the state handle recycling batteries? I think that's something that we need to
That
be looking
is
at
a
too.
great point. Susan, when I walk past my IT office and I see all the cell phones that my foremen have broke out in the field and they're in a box, that comes to mind. So is Kim Rios on the phone by any chance? No? Okay.
The other thing that I wanted to mention also is just something that, at the risk of upsetting my lobbyist friend who represents Amazon, and we have Amazon plants, distribution centers here, I'll order something and I have a cardboard box that whatever the item is inside a great big box with all this plastic crap in it that I can't recycle. I can recycle the cardboard, but not the plastic stuff. That irritates.
Over packaging.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Right, and that unfortunately goes to their being risk averse on guaranteeing everything, right? I'm gonna put the cell phones down here in the businesses too, because that kind of stuff. And there are computer recycling and programs and stuff for things like that, or where you can donate for, you know, the college kids to learn to fix stuff. But we're talking a resource for the mass public, right? When somebody comes into my office and asks me what to do with all this stuff, where do I send them? So this is great. Anybody else? Oh, I see comments here. What a chat. Maybe using more mulch from landscaping materials instead of mostly gravel. Yeah, on the mulch, I'll tell you this. The reason you see so much gravel in landscaping, especially on like DOT projects, is because we have such a hard time getting things to grow in Nevada. We cannot close our stormwater permits. So many of the DOTs and municipalities have gone to xeriscape and gravel so that, one, they can cut their water use, and two, so that they can stabilize for stormwater. But I do agree, where we are revegetating and putting in landscaping, this would be a great, great use. And then I got Doug's comment. Go ahead, Alexia.
I think someone else had their hand up first.
Oh, I'm trying to see the hands, but I don't.
Lakshmi?
Oh, Lakshmi's down there. I'm so sorry, Lakshmi. Go ahead.
It's all right. Thank you. I have two things. One is to what Susan said about Amazon. They could maybe start using reusable packaging instead of recycle. So, not just thinking about recycling, right? So that's one thing. And the second thing is about statewide on all offices. If we could, if we have, leverage to have them in all their kitchens, replace anything plastic related, single-use spoons and forks and all with real ones. And then water stations, refillable stations, or distribute water bottles for people. And so basically promote reuse in those things, so.
Yep, I love it.
We do have in the legislative building now the water stations where you can fill a water bottle. And in fact, last legislative session, the chair of Natural Resources, former chair of Senate Natural Resources, had said, I guess it was session before last, that anyone who showed up in her committee with a plastic water bottle would be, this is a quote, publicly humiliated and reprimanded.
Like it. Thank you. No, but there's just so much more research out there with, replacing like plastic forks and spoons and all with washable things. There's so much, monetary benefit also that I have a whole bunch of stuff that.
Right. And I think that, Lakshmi, is a really great reminder that this is where your group will link with the education committee in helping us have the tools to teach people in our offices and places like that. not only the monetary benefit, but the environmental benefit of doing those things. And I think that's where all these groups are going to start coming together. The messages are going to start colliding, and, you know, hopefully through the education committee, we'll start having tools to speak to businesses and government entities and things like that about doing some of these things. I think there's an appetite there, and I think it will be good. And it kind of goes to one of my bullets further down about, you know, incentives for those companies that use biodegradable packaging and things. Like, I wrote the other day, we had a lunch here, and I had to order luncheon for a whole bunch of people, and we ordered luncheon for 15 people, and Dickey's Barbecue, of all places, brought all of their stuff in paper containers. There was no plastic. And so I made it a point to call their manager and thank them, because those are the things we're trying to do, right, is get rid of the plastics. For the most part, we have to start somewhere. No waste would be great, but, you know, so those kind of things. So I have that down here below, but I'm going to stay back up on here on these opportunities and programs where we think that come to mind. I think Alexia had her hand back up. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely okay. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, and we're talking about sustainability, right, in a larger context than just recycling, but also in the context of recycling. So there's two birds, one stone, right, is looking at other renewable fuel sources, you know, renewable fuel for transportation, fuel from, you know, like woody biomass or other materials like that. I think there's a place out in the Tri-Center currently that's attempting something like, but those are also things that will be coming to the attention of our legislators very, very soon. The EPA, the Renewable Fuel Source Committee, whatever they're called, they're currently working on sort of revising their provisions and stuff. So that's something I think we should keep our eyes on and keep our ears open to. And then the other thing that I wanted to say too was the recycling group that's part of this you know, collaboration, I think are trying to work on, you know, recycling systems and ways for recycling that I think would be applicable to recycling any and all types of things that we all possess as individuals. So it would be really good to work with them on that sort of modeling. That's all I got.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I think, to your point, our group is lagging. We're like kind of waiting for information from them in a weird way. So I think that's going to come, but I do like this, and thank you for the biofuels. Yeah, Fulcrum Biofuels out at Trick. I think they're actually planning on piping their fuels to the Naval Air Station, as far as I know right now. So good things are in the works. Good point. Jessica.
Good afternoon. And you may have this later on in your document, but one thing I think we need to focus on is accurate and prompt measurement of certain metrics or measures. It sounds lame, but I don't think you can manage what you can't measure. And so we really need to focus on getting those accurate and prompt measurements of our goals, basically.
Yep, I agree with you.
Yeah, that's
How do
really
we tell
help us.
people?
Yeah.
How do we tell people that we're making a difference if we can't measure it?
Well, or how do you identify the areas to put the emphasis into and have some kind of data to back that up other than just sort of a gut feeling or conversations. One other point about the biodegradable packaging, I think it's important to note, and I think that maybe somebody from the organics group might like to comment on this, but there's a lot of items that may be marketed as biodegradable or compostable, but in fact they're not. And that kind of language is sort of beyond the scope of our program, but that is something to be aware of. There's a lot of products out there. I saw one just the other day, this beautiful plastic film that claimed it was 100% recyclable, and it can't be recycled like that. It just isn't. So just some comments there.
That is such a great point. And that's common with when you get the bags, the plastic bags to put your fruit in. It says it's compostable, but if you read it, I think it takes 32 years to compost. Like
right,
that,
and in the perfect setting, in an anaerobic digester, or so I definitely think we need to be careful as we're talking about these things to have an understanding that it might not all look as good as it sounds.
you hit on my incentive for biodegradable packaging, where I say it biodegrades within X years. Maybe it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. 30 is too long, or it has a high recycle value, right?
Right.
If you're going to promote use of anything, make it something that has a recycle value, like aluminum, based on
Or or reusable packaging would also go in a big way.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
I like it. Yeah, no, good point. I thought I saw Marco's hand up. Hi, Marco.
Hi there. I was just going to say, for at least for the larger urban areas, I mean, I'd say looking at franchise agreements and seeing ways to, if you have it on here already.
I see it somewhere.
Yeah, that might be a way to get at some of the specific policy levers. I mean, that is a touchy subject, and some of the franchises that are out there already are, somewhat lengthy. Whether that's Waste Management or Republic or even NV Energy or Southwest Gas. I mean, there are mechanisms in there to that could be put in place as long as they're agreed to allow for some type of requirement or incentive, and we've been able to at least do that in the past. I know a few other jurisdictions have been able to do that as well.
Marco, I'm glad you weighed in, because this was a previous sidebar discussion that I had with another committee member. And in a perfect world, would there be, do you think that eventually this group could maybe develop a guideline for a franchise document for a municipality? So say service extended out to Winnemucca or someplace that does not have an existing franchise agreement, but that we could provide maybe a list of items or a template for them to review with their councils or something, so that they know these things are available? Or is that too far of a reach?
I don't see that there's anything wrong with it. I mean, there's a lot of model language out there. I'd say that you'd probably want to have at least something in place with an attorney first, like a municipal attorney first, to at least have a weigh in as what a municipality, whether it's large or small, can do under either a charter, under NRS, or under some other section of NRS that deals specifically with granting of franchises and what some of those requirements might be, as well as getting at some of the overall goals that we're trying to achieve on the sustainability front.
Right.
As an example, like City of Henderson, I mean, they use their franchise fees, a percentage of it goes towards their sustainability program. The city, we have something similar, but that goes for environmental cleanup purposes. We've explored doing some similar things on some of our other franchises. And again, we all have the authority to do those. It's just, the willingness and getting through navigating some of the legalese to get to that point, and having an agreement on the other end to execute.
Right. Okay. No, I love that. Thank you. Oops, this is in the wrong spot. That is a great point, and thank you for answering that question, because I had it kind of hanging out there from, like I said, a previous conversation, and I love it. I think that's great. Jessica, did you have another question, or is your hand still up?
Yeah, I have another question. I'll lower my hand now that I've been called upon. To tap on to what Marco said, I think that's an excellent point about getting legal review of any proposals concerning franchise agreements. But I really think that the franchise agreement process would be a little bit smoother if there were incentives or teeth in the rules or the state solid waste management plan that they could kind of hang their hat on to work with their local contractors. So I think that might be something to be considered. And I'm saying that with my Republic hat firmly off, but thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so one little other piece. God, this is all such good stuff. Sorry I keep tipping my screen, but my camera's in a weird spot and I have to tip it to see who's talking on the chat. It's weird. Sorry. Anyway, so based on all these great ideas, right, there's all these possibilities. One of the really interesting discussions that came up was, through all these groups, was we have all these great ideas that we'd like to implement and do. However, there's a handful of things that we're already trying to do that we could probably do better to kind of create momentum and demonstrate that we are making a difference. Do you guys have any idea of current programs in your area or examples of this that are existing and could be better, or maybe you would like to see happen without taking your group ideas? And I'll give you an example of what brought this up. For those of us who live in northern Nevada, there's a Trex facility right outside of town here in Fernley. And they have this great little bags to benches program. So you save all of your plastic bags from the grocery store and you donate them on behalf of, for instance, Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful. And when they get enough of them, they'll make a bench for your park, right? So super cool. However, all these people are collecting bags, but they're not getting to Trex because Trex is in Fernley and nobody's driving to Fernley. So there's a volunteer in the group who has a garage full of bags and no way to transport this stuff to Fernley. So of an opportunity that has a chink in its armor. And those are the kind of things I'm wondering, are we aware of that maybe we could put some expertise in, or guidance in, or connections, make connections where they could run that program better. Lakshmi, I saw your hand come up. Go ahead.
I don't know if you're already familiar with this, but Tamara from Ecolutions has been managing that specifically, what you just brought up, and she just completed one shipment of 500 pounds of that such plastic to them, and she's collecting some more, and she's probably the right person to talk to about this.
Did you say Ecolutions?
Yeah,
Eco-Solutions?
Tamara, yeah, she's on one of in source reduction group. I can send you the details, Tina.
Yeah, so I mean, that's exactly the type of thing, right? That's what we're looking at doing. So or even if you even look at I would say the residential recycling program is good. It's not great because not everybody knows what to properly put in the bins all the time. And looking at this multifamily residential thing is a bridge to that, right? So that's what I'm talking about. What are we already doing and where can we do better? So if you don't have any ideas on that today, and I'm sure a lot of, like Lakshmi said, a lot of the working groups probably are working in these areas and have members to do that. So I would actually ask any of the group representatives that are on here, when you have your meeting, if you could ask them just for a quick bulleted list, a couple words of these existing programs and maybe their location so that I can get them in this list, I'd appreciate it. Susan?
Well, I was just going to say, Tina, I didn't know about the bags to benches program at all. And I avoid getting the plastic bags at the grocery store because I don't want to throw them away and they don't really work very well to reuse either. So I just use my own cloth bag. But if I'd known about that, I would have been saving those bags for ages to take to some distribution center for it. So that's something that I think we should have included. These sorts of resources and programs, if people know about this, they would make more of an effort than to save them for that.
Yeah, I was actually going to try to challenge the other members at the AGC to have a bags to benches contest to clean out their houses and stuff and see which one of us could get to a donating bench to KTMB first. Because we're competitive. We're a competitive group. So I think I saw Alexia come up too.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm part of the education committee too with this group. And one of the things that we talked about was creating a resource for exactly this type of thing in the, or on the website, you know, a place where you could go and maybe do a Boolean or Google search. I don't know what they call it anymore for like, what do I do with plastic bags? And then this would pop up. So this would be a really great example of, you know, cross translation here with what the policy and funding group maybe needs to look at in terms of making sure that the state website is allowed to make those types of connections on behalf of the educational committee, and then maybe going a little further if it's needed, and looking into any kind of funding that might be necessary or that might help make that kind of information accessible to the most amount of people.
It would be helpful to know also what other kinds of plastic could be included in the bags, the benches, like the bubble wrap that you get in packaging, or the big pillow plastic bubbles.
Yep. Yeah, those are things I don't think people realize. So that's great. Thank you for that. I made a note of that too. So that's the kind of thing we're looking for in regards to just, and again, I'm going to reiterate that I realize a lot of this is going to come out of the working groups, but also recognizing that we're going to have so much stuff coming out of the working groups that identifying some low-hanging fruit that can make some measurable impacts early on will be important to the success of this group and carrying the momentum forward so that our legislators and potential new partners take us serious. You've got to get some early successes. So that's kind of what this discussion is around, is possibly improving the things that are out there already. So, so we talked about this biodegradable thing. And then the other thing that came up around policy is identifying whether it's municipal, like city, county, or local programs already in place to build momentum. And I think, Marco, your comment in our last meeting came to mind that, you know, both the city of Las Vegas and the city of Reno have sustainability programs, that you have these franchise agreements for recycling. Just this group understanding if there's any opportunities to be beneficial to our local municipalities programs already, right? We don't want to have 50 different streams of efforts going on and we're all doing a little bit, but not enough to tell a story. So are there opportunities for us to partner with established entities like cities and counties to further the sustainability message in those locations? Does that make sense? Or is it a little out there? But I'm trying to avoid duplication where possible. No ideas? Okay.
Tina, it looks like Lakshmi has her hand raised.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I have a hard time seeing them. Thank you. Go ahead, Lakshmi.
No worries. Kind of three different things. One is to what Susan was saying. The good news about that plastic collection thing is you can also include plastic packaging, you know, when you buy beans and lentils and those kind of things. So it's really good program. And yes, there is a brochure that I can forward to people, or maybe I have Tamara send it out, that explains exactly what can be included. And the other thing about what Alexia said and the education one, it would be nice to have a place for recognizing, you know, where people can come in and say, look, this restaurant is doing just the perfect, you know, doing the right things, kind of like recognizing them for good deeds. That would be awesome. Yeah. And
okay.
And
that's it. Yeah, I like it.
And finally, I don't know if the you know, say no to single-use things. There is the Sts Campaign, that one that I don't know if it's still, if it made it to the your list or not. It's a pretty long one, so I can't tell. You know, Skip the Stuff is the campaign name. I don't know if you, basically what it does is asks restaurants, when they give a food, to-go food,
Yep.
they only give out the plastic spoons and forks and et cetera, all the stuff, only upon customer asking for it.
So is it an educational campaign that just sends the message, or do they have any way of measuring their success?
It's an ordinance we're actually trying to get passed. So it's actually a policy thing that we would like to get passed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Along
I do.
with
I remember
education.
this. Yep.
Mhm.
I remember this discussion from early on when I was able to call into the recycle group. Okay. Yep. Nope. This is good. Thank you. Alexia?
Yeah, Lakshmi, that's a good idea. I own a restaurant, and I just wanted to speak to that quickly. There are all kinds of options for restaurant owners, to provide people with, air quote, single-use things. That, like, for example, I use recycled, like wooden, fork, knife, spoon things. With recycled napkins, which it sounds funny, but everybody's so used to them now. But these things can be turned into mulch in people's plants and gardens. So while I think we're looking at creating policies to affect change, we can at the same time maybe add a conversation about, well, we're going to change the way you guys normally do things, but here's an alternative. So it's not, ripping something away from somebody, but providing them with a solution, in the same breath.
I agree. I think that's part of that whole business outreach education piece. I think sometimes when we think about education and outreach, we really just focus on the kids, right? Because they can put the most influence on their parents. But, part of what brought me to this group and prior to this to KTMB was, as a business member of my community, I wanted us to do better as a business when it came to sustainability. And I've been leaning really hard on KTMB to help teach me these things that I can do in my business, which when we think about how much time we spend in the workplace and how much resources we use in the workplace, it's a big deal. So I love that. I think it's great. I think that's really, really good. Okay. I'm going to move us along a little bit just because we're kind of going to be up against the hour here in a few minutes. I did want to say also one of our goals was to increase the communication surrounding legislative proposals that may come down or things that may come through this group. So Susan did a little legwork for us in that regard. I think I got this wrong, Susan, because it's not Natural Resources Committee anymore. So could you just let the group know that where we're at on just kind of our outreach to those folks ahead of the session?
Yes, I reached out to Assemblyman Howard Watts II, who is an assemblyman from Southern Nevada, and he chairs both the Assembly Natural Resources Committee during the regular session, but also he chairs the Interim Standing Committee on Natural Resources. And that's made up of members from both the Assembly and the Senate. And they will have 10 bill drafts that they can introduce from this interim committee. And then as well, his own committee during the regular session will also have a number of bill drafts that they can introduce. So if we have some great ideas from this for some bill drafts, that would be a really great place to present them. And he has said that he would love to have us do a presentation to their committee at some point. And we'll probably have the in-depth staff take over that presentation, I think. Might be the best thing, or maybe perhaps Tina, you talking about policy issues if we have some suggested policy issues, but by that time, and it'll probably be March or April before they can get us on schedule to do the presentation.
Awesome, great. I think that's a great opportunity to have a champion in the legislature for what this group is doing.
Yeah.
Thank you for making that contact for us.
And Mr. Watts said also that he would try to sit in on some of our committee meetings as well. I just need to remember to send him the notes or send him the calendar invitations.
I love it. I love it. So another item that's been on our agenda for a while that we've kicked around but haven't, and this is my fault, I haven't really held anybody's feet to the fire on this one. We had a handful of folks commit to reviewing the Nevada Solid Waste Management Plan and providing comments. And I realized that I failed to provide any structure around that. So my ask of you folks who volunteered is that you review the draft or the Nevada Solid Waste Management Plan with your comments and get those back to us by March 1. Bree, I was just going to ask you a question, Bree. One, if you wanted those, how you wanted those comments presented to you, do you just want them, you know, you download it and track changes or whatever? And two, how you wanted them to come to you at NDEP?
So the first one, it's, back up quick. So we're also working on this internally as well. We have our first meeting on this next week. And the way we're going about it is we converted it to a Word doc, and we're using, you know, the comments feature to track changes. And the first thing we're going to be doing is updating all the data because it's all from 2016. So that's one thing we're going to be working on first. Just so you guys know, as you're reading through it, there's a lot of outdated stuff that we're going to pull data for. But whatever is easiest for everyone, I found with people being, you know, located in different areas, the, you know, comments feature is a great way to collaborate on that document. And then I can pull the comments from there. It's whatever's easiest for you guys, but that's one way that I found that this project has been easier with people in different areas.
Okay, and then if we do track changes in the comments, can we just email them to you when we're done?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, so and I'm gonna just put track changes, email to. Okay, cool. Thank you for that. Okay, so here's the touchy subject. I saved it for last. So when we're looking for ideas to fund this group or the project, I've been having conversations with folks, and I'll just tell you right up front, I'm of the philosophy when programs are new and we're trying them that any sort of, you know, incentive or tax or fee relief to participate is my preferred way to go because I think it gets business buy-in. But one discussion that came up was twofold, and that's in regards to a tipping fee increase for trash. And I'll say this, it's a touchy subject because anytime you talk about increasing fees, there's an impacted public, right? And in many cases, the argument could be made that, you know, it's disadvantaging certain communities or certain socioeconomic status folks. So there's that fear, but I'm going to bring this up anyway because I do think there's some merit in it, in that our tipping fees are so cheap that there's really no incentive to recycle or reduce. You know, I'll give you an example. I went to the dump last weekend with a 10-yard dumpster gooseneck. It's a huge trailer for anybody who knows, and it cost me $40. And I almost felt guilty about it because it was so cheap. I did sort out my steel and recycled all that. I did do that. But the point being, it's almost like water. If it's so cheap, there's zero incentive to conserve, right? And so we kind of talked about this being one option that would have to go through the state to the various waste collection groups through maybe franchise agreements or whatever. But that being said, the fee could go to illegal dumping, education and outreach, and viable projects through this group, if that was something that we wanted to pursue. So I'm putting all options that come to me in this because this is the group's decision, not mine. Because I know the argument comes up, if you increase the fee, you're going to have increased illegal dumping. And while I get that, my comment would be, one, we're not the police, so we can't regulate that. But two, that some of that fee could go towards those type of programs. So that was something that came up. In regards to funding projects, did any of you folks have discussions with your groups about other options? Funding this group or anything? And I do know that there's, you know, grant funds and things like that, right? I'm aware of that, and I think that those opportunities will come forward as we refine our message and we refine the programs and policies that we're going to solidify and chase. So I think those grant opportunities will show up there. But is there anybody else that would like to just slap something up on the list today? We don't have to figure it out. It's just so that we don't lose track of it. And all this stuff is only in red because it was new from our last discussion. And so I'll clean this up because I know it's a little hard to read in red, but I'll clean it up and put it on I'll put our notes in the group folder. Susan.
One thing, and I'm probably jumping ahead too far, where you have the conversation with the governor's office. I assume that means GOED, Governor's Office on Economic Development. Is that what that?
Yes.
Okay. I will look at the incentives that they offer for tax abatements for new or expanding companies, and I want to, if they don't already have in there that they need to have good sustainability practices, clean energy, recycling, whatever, that should definitely be included in part of their incentive. If you're not doing these or planning to do these practices, you shouldn't be eligible for the incentive.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's great. I
They
think
may
it's great.
already be in there.
What about NSHE and maybe through University of Nevada Cooperative Extension?
Yeah. Using them as a resource for outreach?
Yeah, I mean, it's as a part of Extension's mission, I mean, and the overall land grant mission of UNR, I mean, that's certainly in their wheelhouse, and you know, their programs have statewide reach.
Yeah.
And they also probably have experts at each of the extension offices that can, you know, that can do this, you know, that can do the overall increase awareness of sustainability, and they can go for things like national grants or things that pass through, you know, like NSF or even other, you know, competitive solicitations.
Marco, that's a great point, because part of their initiative in each of these counties is program development. And that's exactly what we're trying to do in those areas. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think, Bree, did you put your hand back up?
I did, but I think Jessica had hers up first.
Oh, go ahead, Jessica. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh yeah, just real quick. I wonder if the Nevada, and it's losing me, the collection of groups for the conservation programs in rural Nevada. Yeah, conservation district. I'm sorry, I got interrupted right when I was trying to collect my thoughts. I apologize. But yes.
Yeah, I love it. This is great. This is exactly what the resource conservation district.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I could actually talk to those folks. I'm pretty tied in with those guys as well as the extension. So good suggestions. I love it. Let's go, Bree. Okay.
Yeah. Another one is the Nevada Green Business Network. They certify businesses. Yeah. I think Skylar on our end helps with that. Yep.
We are in that process right now, and they've been super helpful. Lina, did you take your hand down, or did we answer your question?
My hand down because I think we've moved on. I had a thought on the section above, but that's okay.
We'll take it. No, we'll take it. Come on.
Okay. Well, so on funding, I mean, of course, we did hear the presentation on the non-capital funding sources, but that was not necessarily my thought. My understanding, and I'll say it again today that I know enough to be dangerous, is that for projects that utilize solar in powering them, they don't have to be a solar array, that you can, that under certain circumstances, that entity can get the ITC tax credit. And also if they're located in a rural area, the USDA can approve it, I think, for up to 25 or 30% of the total project cost. So I've been looking at it in the context of wastewater treatment projects that are powered, that have solar thermal power, and those do qualify. So I'm curious as to whether or not some, a landfill or recycling upgrade that utilize solar to power the operation might also be eligible. I'm doing some research on that, so I can report back, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, no, I love that. Okay. Yeah, thank you. That is great. Oh, I see the link over here. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I didn't keep up well with the chat notes, so if there's anything that's in there that somebody wants me to talk about, please speak up, because I'm having a hard time keeping up with that too. So no, this is good stuff. This is what we're looking for, people. What a great meeting. You guys are killing it today. And actually, I think that's really all I had, because these action items were from our last meeting and we're kind of knocking them out today. So that's good. With that, I would ask if anybody has any new business or any lasting thoughts that they would like to bring up before we close out our meeting today.
Yeah, this is Alexia. I just, a thought occurred to me listening to, I think it was Laura talking about water. You know, there are some legacy contamination issues in our waterways in the state of Nevada. And I'm just wondering, and I think I'll leave it here for us to ponder on and maybe talk about another time, but like, is that something that we should consider including in a sustainability plan for the state of Nevada, right? Is cleaning up legacy contamination?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think the legacy contamination issues in regards to water are probably bigger than this group, in my opinion. We could totally support them, but I'm thinking what's coming to mind is like RCRA type stuff, where you would get federal funding for RCRA cleanup of legacy water issues. But yeah, definitely we have to mull that over. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm gonna find a place to put that in here. And I think, Lina, your hand came back up. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I had mentioned above whether or not we wanted to include wastewater treatment, because I do think there's going to be significant movement, from anywhere from, large scale municipal wastewater treatment down to the smallest rural ones to deal with not legacy contamination, but PFAS, PFOS, the forever chemicals, that's all coming. And so having, I think, looking at our regulations and statutes to allow us to use the most recent technologies to address those issues in wastewater, that can also address perhaps water recycling, et cetera, because I think all of those regulations are going to be coming from the EPA and on down through NDEP.
You're right, they are coming. There's draft after draft being proposed at the moment. Okay, good stuff. I got that noted. Anything else before we close? I hear some people dropping off, so I think we're getting close to the end here. I had one question for you, Bree, on how can I print the chat notes or save the chat notes? Is that a thing?
I'll get you the chat notes. I'll copy them right now and I'll email them to you.
I can just right click and copy them. Is that what you would have done?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I'll do, and I'll put them at the bottom so that I can go through and make sure I captured everybody's participation, because I'd hate for somebody to feel overlooked. So, okay. Okay, with that, does anybody have any additional items? If not, I'm gonna let everybody go on their merry way and have a wonderful day until next month.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Okay.